This is a part of a continuing series of policy-specific issues that we're talking about. You know, I think most people realize that we need a new mayor. We know that more than 53% of the people across the city of Houston, even with a dismal turnout, 53% of the people agreed with everybody in this room, or at least with few exceptions. A chronicle here? Okay. Making a joke. Okay. 53% of the people agree that we need a new mayor, and so we're no longer spending a lot of time talking about all the corruption and so forth that exists at City Hall. We're going to be more specific and more policy-driven over the next 9 or 10 days. So thank you for coming. And before I go over the list of Turner's broken promises, I'm going to ask the mayor, because I know he's watching. Or he will watch. I'm going to ask him directly, why won't you debate me, Mayor? Why will you not debate me? If I had been the mayor for 4 years, and I had a record of success like you claim in your TV commercials, and I was proud of all the work that I had done and all the voices I had lifted, as he claims, I would be beating the door down to come and debate every opponent I had to explain what I've done and what I'm going to do. So why won't you debate me, Mayor? Even the last election cycle, there were debates in the runoff. Why have you now canceled the Mexican American Forum and also the League of Women Voters debate? Both of which were set, both of which we got formal invitations to. I accepted on the same day I received the letter, and you lied and said that there was never a debate or forum scheduled. One of many lies that you've told. The citizens want to know. The citizens want to hear from you. We can't find it on your website because when we go to the issues page of your website, there's nothing there. And so all we have, other than your empty words at your press conferences, are your commercials, and most of those are lies. If you really think you've done a good job, debate me. You're being paid. I'm paying you. Everybody in this room is paying you. Show up and tell the citizens and the residents of the city what your vision is. And I've made it clear what my vision is, but I want to be one-on-one with you in a room, and let's talk about the city of Houston and the direction we're going and where we've come from. And we can learn a lot about after reviewing Turner's record. Whether he's just another say-anything politician, which I think we all agree he is, who forgets the promises he made after the election, or is he in fact an office holder we can trust? Ask the firefighters. Firefighters busted their humps last election cycle and endorsed the mayor even before the runoff and worked tirelessly all across the city of Houston to get the mayor elected. And almost immediately after he was elected, he turned his back on them and stabbed them right in the back. That's the mayor we're dealing with. Now, I can't go over every single broken promise that this mayor has made, so we're going to keep it to only 6 today. In 2000, because we could be here a long time. In 2015, Sylvester Turner promised that he would add, he said it two or three different times, in his transition memo, he talked about adding 600. There's been times at press conferences he said he was going to add 800 more police officers on our streets. I would respectfully suggest to you, and the record is very clear, that he broke that promise. There are not more police officers on the street than there were in 2015, despite what the police officers union, who tries to buttress him in some regard, they've told me directly and to my face when I met with them that we don't have enough police officers, and he made that promise and he has not kept it. He has not kept that promise. There has been no significant increase, and certainly no increase to the tune of 600 to 800 additional police officers. Did you know that on Black Friday there were 8 robberies in Houston? just on that one day, and that's not every crime that was committed. I'm just specifically talking about 8 individuals who were out shopping were robbed on Black Friday. 8 women in broad daylight. Now you think about how brazen that is. We know a lot of crime occurs at night in this city. There are places in this city that even our police officers do not want to go at night in this city. I know this because I talk to the police officers, the rank and file. My brother-in-law is a Houston police officer. There are places across the city of Houston that even our police officers at night do not want to go. I'm talking about 8 robberies that occurred in broad daylight of women who were out shopping. It tells you a lot about the criminals, the criminal class in this city that are so brazen that they'll rob somebody in broad daylight. There was a 70-year-old woman who was attacked in the parking lot of a Kroger store in Westheimer. The robber snatched her purse and even tried to steal her car. At the Dillards in the Galleria, a 67-year-old woman was pistol whipped before the robber ripped her purse away from her and ran off in broad daylight, in very public places. Happens all across the city of Houston. And this was just in the last couple of days. The Houston Chronicle and this mayor and his paid lackeys will tell you, on company time, by the way, they're on Twitter all day long. We're paying them to be on Twitter to lie about the mayor's record. And they will tell you and try to convince you that crime is down across the city of Houston. But the problem they have is we all have eyes. And we see what's happening. We know when we drive from here, from this campaign headquarters, and we drive around the city of Houston, make a mental note for yourself. How many police cars do you see? None. You will rarely see a police car. Rarely. It's a rare occurrence to see a police officer. But when you do, what do? You look at your speedometer or you tap your brake. Right? That's called deterrence. And I've been saying for more than a year, we need more police officers on the street. The command structure of HPD is bloated. There are 600 police officers that should be not in front of desks and not in offices, that should be on the street in a car, on a horse, or on foot. We need a police presence. And when I'm the mayor, we will have one. I did a about 7 or 8 months ago, I did a 24-hour tour of the city of Houston. I stayed up an entire 24-hour cycle and went up every area across the city of Houston. And the couple of people that were taking shifts with me, we took notes. And we said, let's count how many police officers we see. In a 24-hour period, all across the city of Houston, I saw 2. Wow. I saw 2. And I want you to think about this for a minute. We have 5,200 police officers. 5,200. Okay? They have a budget of over $1 billion. 2,300 of those police officers are assigned to the patrol division. They have 3 shifts. When you take into account leave and people being off for various reasons, at any one time, we might have 350 police officers on the street per shift. Now you think about that for a minute. The city of Houston is more than 660 square miles. And we have 350 police officers who are busy, as I say, a one-armed paper hanger, or a one-legged man in a butt-kicking contest, trying to patrol our streets. That is not enough. And so when I tell you that this mayor made a promise and didn't keep it, public safety is not just a slogan. It's a matter of life and death. And one of my promises that I have made and I will keep is we will put more police on the street. Now, broken promise number 2. The mayor promised in the debates leading up to the 2015 election that he would institute zero-based budgeting. He has not. Now he has crawfished from that like you've never seen. Councilmember Knox was able to get an amendment to get that as part of the city's procedure and method with regard to budgeting. But you can tell from even 4 years later, this mayor doesn't buy into it. I don't think he understands it. I don't think he understands how important it is to make sure that we are spending wisely every single dollar and every single penny. We have too many challenges to be wasting our money. He broke that promise. Houston is still waiting for zero-based budgeting 4 years later. Remember, the money that we save through zero-based budgeting can be used to fund public safety, whether it be paying our firefighters in a fair way and keeping the promise that we made to them and upholding the will of 298,000 voters, or putting more police officers on the street. Public safety, that's job one. Number 3, Turner told us he would fix our streets. Now, there's a few visuals behind me that prove that was a complete farce. You know, this is the same mayor that went out and dug a pothole and then filled it. Did you know he did that? That right there should be reason enough to vote against him. There's thousands of potholes all over this city. I mean, I've had 3 blowouts myself. I'm sure people in this room have had many blowouts. You know, all over the city. And this mayor, right around, because we were talking about street maintenance, the mayor goes out and creates a pothole, and then he fixes it. And that pothole needs to be fixed again now, I bet you right now. The conditions of our roads and the congestion in the Houston streets are worse than they've ever been. You can look at the exhibits behind me to prove that. In many places across this city, it looks like a third world country. And it's very frustrating and distressing for me and for many people across the city of Houston to know that we are the oil and gas capital of the world, that we have the largest medical center in the world, that we have the largest concentration of architects and engineers and contractors and people that know how to build things. And yet our streets are some of the worst in the country. Why is that? I would suggest that's leadership. That's a leadership problem. Number 4, the 4th broken promise. Turner told us that he would reduce the risk of flooding. I mean, lay aside the fact that our flood mitigation monies have now been taken over by the state, whereas it should be that we have local control, that the people here, the super neighborhoods, the civic clubs, the local neighborhoods know where the areas that need flooding protection and help. Now we have to go through the state for projects going forward because the governor doesn't trust our mayor, like many of us do not trust our mayor. He broke that promise. We are in no better position to deal with the next heavy rain event than we were before Hurricane Harvey. And you don't have to believe me. Listen to the mayor's own flood czar. The mayor's self-appointed flood czar says that we are in no better position to deal with the next flood than we were prior to Hurricane Harvey. And that says a lot, because it's his responsibility to prepare us for the next flood. And he admits that he has failed. And if I had a flood czar that said that, I'd have a new flood czar the next day. I would have a new flood czar the next day, because we need to get the job done. The entire future of the city of Houston depends upon it. The long-term sustainability and viability of Houston depends on us preparing ourselves for the next flood. And we know it's coming. And lay aside, and we'll talk more about this next week, lay aside the fact, not just preparing for the next flood, how about those people who were crushed by the last flood? Even the mayor admits, and you can't believe a lot he says, but even the mayor admits that only 15 people have been helped from Hurricane Harvey. Think about that. Are you telling me in our city, we have more general contractors, architects, and engineers, like I've said, who know how to turn dirt, who know how to build structures from the ground up, know how to renovate structures, that we've only helped 15 people? And there's $1.18 billion that's been allocated to help these folks for more than a year? And that money's been sitting there? And these people have been suffering? If he was the CEO, he would be terminated. The mayor Promise number 5, he promised that he would build more affordable housing. We all know that one of the problems that we have in the city of Houston is it's very expensive to live here. When you think about it, what's happening is the city of Houston itself is not really growing. The Houston region is growing. What we're doing is League City's growing, Dickinson's growing, Woodlands is growing, League City's growing, Sugarland's growing. And what are we doing? Now we're talking about billions of dollars in widening highways so people can come back and forth into the city of Houston while the city of Houston itself dies on the vine. That's what's happening. That's what's happening. The mayor promised that we would have more affordable housing. He's had 4 years to make that happen. That's another broken promise. The National Low-Income Housing Coalition reports that Houston has the highest deficit of affordable housing in Texas. That's not progress. And it might be because of the cost overruns, which has resulted in finishing a fewer number of units at a higher cost per unit. What we do know is Turner's donors are getting fat and rich, and people that need affordable housing are being deprived. We're going to do a lot better. We're going to do a lot better when I'm your mayor. And broken promise number 6. He said he would make significant investments and improvements to our fire department. That's what he said. That's a promise that he made. He said it many different times. It was in his transition report as well. That's another broken promise. Remember when he gave layoff notices to 440 firefighters? Remember that? Knowing full well that that was going to increase response times? Remember that? And we know that response times, when you're talking about EMS or fire, you're talking about life and death. I mean, that's what you're talking about. Life and death.
Yes, sir.
10 seconds can mean life or death. 3 seconds can mean life or death. And when he's talking about cutting 440 firefighters and not, remember that 2 classes that he wasn't going to graduate? Yeah. And he was using that as leverage and trying to convince the residents of our city that the firefighters were bad and he was good. Remember that? Prop A good, Prop B. Remember that foolishness? We can't forget these things, guys. We can't forget. His cuts would have resulted in response times increasing by 11 minutes. You think about that. By 11 minutes. He has cut the promised budget, resulting in a decline in the fleet, a decline in the maintenance of the fleet and the facilities. In 2018, as an example, it was revealed that 50 fire trucks do not have functioning air conditioning systems. Think about that. Those are some real harsh work conditions. If you've ever ridden in one of those trucks like I have, even with the air conditioning on, with those guys and women in their gear, it's tough. Now take the air conditioning out of the equation. Try that on for size. My question to all of my fellow residents of the city of Houston is this. Can anyone look at the present state of the Houston city government and say, we want 4 more years of this?
No, sir.
So let me make this pledge. A new day is coming to Houston. I will report progress on my promises routinely. I will post it on our website. We will be transparent. When I fail you, I will tell you. We're going to do a lot better. We're going to make progress. We're going to get the job done. I'm a problem solver. And I'm going to ask you to hold me accountable.